American troops are back in the jungle. For the first time in decades, U.S. ground forces are training in Panama's dense terrain, reviving an old Cold War training ground known as Green Hell. But this isn't just about training. It's the latest signal that Washington's focus is shifting closer to home. I'll have the details. For the first time in more than 2 decades, American ground forces are back in Panama's jungles. This month, a contingent of U.S. Marines and soldiers wrapped up a brutal 3-week training course in Panama's dense, unforgiving terrain, a place so hostile that American troops once nicknamed it Green Hell. The training, called the Combined Jungle Operations Course, is being run by U.S. Southern Command and the Panamanian military at a base called Cristobal Colon, once known to American troops as Fort Sherman. For decades, it was one of the premier jungle warfare schools in the world before the U.S. handed it back to Panama in 1999. Now, it's back in business. The Pentagon says the course teaches everything from survival and navigation to small unit tactics in the thickest terrain on Earth. Students learn to forage for food, purify water, build shelters, and fight their way through mud and humidity and near-zero visibility. The first graduating class included 46 troops, 18 U.S. Marines, 1 Army soldier, and 27 Panamanian security personnel. At first glance, this might sound like a simple training exercise, but it's happening against a very different backdrop, one that suggests that something larger is at play. Across Latin America, the U.S. military footprint has been growing. Special operations forces, logistics units, and now conventional troops are appearing in places that they haven't been in years. And it's not lost on regional observers that Panama sits right between Colombia, home to narco-trafficking networks, and Venezuela, whose regime remains hostile, to say the least, to Washington. So what's the message here? Well, officially, the Pentagon insists this isn't about preparing for any specific operation. A spokesman told ABC News that the training is, quote, not tied to any potential conflict. Instead, they frame it as part of a broader effort to strengthen regional partnerships and improve readiness for, quote, any environment. But if you zoom out a bit, perhaps this fits a pattern. Since President Trump returned to office, his administration has emphasized the need to secure the Western Hemisphere. In practice, that's looked like a renewed focus on Latin America, the military buildup in the Caribbean, more intelligence cooperation with regional allies, and new deployments like this one in Panama. For Panama, it's a symbolic return to partnership. For the U.S., it's a signal that Washington isn't ceding its influence in its own backyard, especially as China expands investments across that region and Russia deepens ties with Caracas and Havana. Now, beyond the symbolic aspects of this, there's also, of course, a practical side. The U.S. military hasn't really trained in a tropical jungle environment since the late 1990s. And after 9/11, everything shifted to deserts and mountains, Iraq and Afghanistan. But jungle warfare, well, that demands a completely different mindset. The Pentagon says this is just the beginning. The course will expand in the coming months, potentially hosting platoon-sized units and more partner nations. Officials hope it becomes a permanent fixture of the U.S. training rotation, a way to keep American forces ready for any fight in any environment. Still, there are some risks here. Critics in Latin America are already warning that the U.S. could be reestablishing a military presence under the guise of training, stirring memories of Cold War-era interventions. And in Venezuela, of course, pro-government media outlets have been quick to frame this as a rehearsal for an invasion. Washington insists that's nonsense, but perception matters. The sight of American troops slogging through Panamanian jungle mud is a powerful image. Either way, the message is clear. The U.S. military is refocusing on the hemisphere that it calls home. All right, coming up next, a former al-Qaeda terrorist at the White House. Syrian President Ahmad al-Sharaa meets with Trump in a first-ever visit by a Syrian head of state. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. PDB host and, as you may have heard, culinary expert and world-renowned foodie. Okay, I may be over-egging the pudding on those last 2 descriptions, but I do want to tell you about an amazing company designed for foodies everywhere. Look, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's an amazing business that celebrates the best of America by shipping the country's most iconic foods from legendary restaurants straight to your door, anywhere in the U.S. And now that we're in November, Goldbelly is the perfect option for hosting Thanksgiving without the stress. And with Black Friday around the corner, it's also the perfect time to pre-order your holiday gifts. Look, I've ordered all sorts of great foods from Goldbelly. It's simple, it's quick, and it is delicious. And with Thanksgiving right there staring us in the face, I'm looking at the desserts you can order on Goldbelly, including, get this, the 3-in-1 Pie Cakin'. It's a fun dessert that combines pecan pie, pumpkin pie, and cake into one. Come on, who's not going to like that? It's the ultimate Thanksgiving centerpiece and something any family would love. Everything from Goldbelly arrives fresh and beautifully packaged, and it will totally change how you think about ordering food online. So, if you're looking for that perfect holiday gift, or you want to impress your friends and family with an epic Thanksgiving, and who doesn't, go to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code PDB. That's goldbelly.com, code PDB, for 20% off your first order. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, let's talk health, shall we? Specifically, let's talk about maintaining your health as you get older. I know, everybody's favorite subject. But look, you and I know this. Getting older sneaks up on you, right? Stiff joints after workouts, hair thinning out, changes in a variety of ways. That's why I'm genuinely pumped to tell you about Bubs Natural Collagen Peptides. That's the company, Bubs. As you age, your body makes less collagen, and that is a problem because, well, collagen is the glue holding everything together. So Bubs helps restore it, giving you stronger joints, healthier hair, better nails, and quicker recovery, and that's important. Look, I mix it into my morning coffee. It's tasteless. It dissolves straight away. No fuss, no muss. As they say, easy peasy. I don't know who says it, but I just did. And here's a real bonus. This is important. Bubs is also a tribute to Navy SEAL hero Glenn Bub Doherty, right? You remember his story. He died saving lives in Benghazi. Seems like yesterday. They donate 10% of profits to his foundation and to other important charities, right? To give them a try. Another great thing about Bubs, it's pure ingredients. Grass-fed, no sugars or fillers, third-party tested, NSF certified for sport, Whole30 approved. Come on. Trusted by over 100,000 folks, even named Best Collagen of 2024 by Health.com. And, as if you need more reasons to order from Bubs, they have killer electrolytes and MCT creamer. Again, all clean ingredients. Live better longer. For a limited time only, our PDB listeners are getting 20% off at Bubs Naturals by using code PDB at checkout. Just head to bubsnaturals.com, it's that simple, and use code PDB, and you're all set. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. You know what? Tell them the PDB sent you. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. It's the kind of image no one would have imagined just a year ago. A former jihadist commander shaking hands with the President of the U.S. at the White House. But that's exactly what happened on Monday when Syria's interim president Ahmad al-Sharaa met President Trump for talks seen as a turning point in U.S.-Syria relations. Not long ago, al-Sharaa was one of America's most wanted, an Islamist rebel commander of the terror group known as HTS, an al-Qaeda offshoot, leading the fight and ultimately overthrowing Syrian dictator Assad's regime back in December. Now, he's apparently Washington's ally in Damascus, welcomed to the Oval Office in a moment that underscores just how far Syria has come since Assad's ouster and Syria's bloody civil war's end. As longtime PDB listeners will know, that shift didn't happen overnight. This is a culmination of months of diplomacy that began when Trump first met al-Sharaa back in Riyadh in May, where he lifted a $10 million bounty on the interim Syrian president's head, calling al-Sharaa, quote, a tough guy, a fighter. That meeting marked the beginning of let's call it an unlikely partnership. Since then, both the State Department and the UN removed al-Sharaa from the sanctions list, citing, quote, the progress demonstrated by Syrian leadership after the departure of Assad. Inside the White House yesterday, the mood was strikingly warm. Trump praised al-Sharaa's leadership, saying, quote, we want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. Trump added that he has, quote, confidence that al-Sharaa will be able to do the job, signaling the administration's growing faith in the new Islamist government's stability. The Trump administration first suspended the enforcement of the Caesar Act sanctions back in May, following that initial meeting between Trump and Sharaa in Riyadh. This week, the Treasury Department extended that suspension another 180 days. It's a decision administration officials say is meant to give Syria breathing room as it rebuilds. For background, the Syria Civilian Protection Act, passed in 2019, was one of the harshest sanctions ever imposed on Damascus, targeting individuals and companies linked to Assad's inner circle. Though a full repeal still requires congressional approval, the temporary waivers effectively reopen Syria's access to international finance and reconstruction aid. But the law also gives the president the power to suspend enforcement for national security reasons, which is exactly what Trump has done twice now. In an interview with the Washington Post after he met with Trump, al-Sharaa framed the easing of sanctions as essential to rebuilding the country. He said, quote, "It's clear through the policies of Mr. Trump that he is in favor of stability in Syria." As part of that broader thaw, the Trump administration also announced that Syria will reopen its embassy in Washington, a move that senior administration officials say will enable, quote, "counterterrorism, security, and economic coordination." It was one of the more clear signs that Syria's diplomatic isolation is ending, and that Washington now views Damascus not as a problem to contain, but a partner to shape. For al-Sharaa, it's a rather remarkable transformation. Once jailed by American forces in Iraq, he spent the past year recasting himself from jihadist to statesman, trading fatigues for suits, positioning himself as the man who could bring Syria back into the international fold. Al-Sharaa later Monday signed the Political Cooperation Declaration with the Global Coalition to Defeat ISIS, making Syria the coalition's 90th member. However, Syria's information minister stressed in a post on X that the agreement, quote, "contains no military components." But, symbolically, it is a sharp break from Syria's pariah status under Assad. Trump, when asked by reporters about the optics of working with a former Islamist extremist, shrugged off the criticism. He said, quote, "People say Sharaa had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts," end quote. But one interesting story that I want to bring to your attention about al-Sharaa's visit was his meeting with House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Brian Mast. Now, if you don't know, Congressman Mast lost both his legs while serving as a U.S. Army explosive ordnance disposal technician in Afghanistan back in 2010, a victim of the very types of weapons once used by al-Sharaa and his terrorist organization. As you can imagine, that made for an interesting meeting. Mast described their exchange as one between, quote, "two former soldiers and two former enemies." When he pressed al-Sharaa on why that changed, the Syrian president said he hoped to, quote, "liberate from the past, to stand with the U.S. as an ally, not an adversary." For many in Washington, that moment said more than any press release could. It was a symbol of how far Syria has apparently come since Assad's fall, and how personal diplomacy has become a hallmark of President Trump's foreign policy. Now, if I may, a bit of reality is perhaps warranted here. The optics, look, are certainly remarkable. A former jihadist member of al-Qaeda, now at the head of Syria's government, meeting in the White House. But inside Syria at this moment, there's still instability, there's distrust, and there's cynicism that al-Sharaa could develop an inclusive government that respects and protects all the various minorities and religious beliefs in the country. Look, it's good to hope for the best, but it's not wise to build your foreign policy strategy on hope. The next year and its actions will likely tell us if Sharaa's apparent change of heart and desire for peace and stability is legit, and if he's able to suppress the extremist elements lurking within his government and his country. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Tuesday, the 11th of November. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And to listen to the show ad-free, well, you can do that, and it is very simple. Just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here, with a message from our friends over at Birch Gold Group. Now, it is that time of year again, and by that, I mean it's the one time of year that Birch Gold Group gives away free gold, I did say free gold, with every qualifying purchase. That's right, for Black Friday, when you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, Birch Gold Group will send you free gold for every $20,000 purchased. Look, gold started this year around $2,600 an ounce. And by October, it was over $4,000 an ounce. And why? Well, in a nutshell, global uncertainty. 2025 has been defined by trade wars, real wars, and general uneasiness. And central banks are pulling away from the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency. Here's a fact. Gold thrives in times of uncertainty. And if you're looking to diversify your savings, Birch Gold can help you. Plus, now through November 30th, get free gold with a qualifying purchase. Just text PDB to the number 989-898 to claim your eligibility and for a free information kit on gold. And remember, your opportunity for free gold with qualifying purchases ends on November 30th. So don't wait. Text PDB to the number 989-898.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.